is Marcus. I work dev relations at Edge and Node, and today we have a very special guest, a senior engineer from Edge and Node who's been working for, at this point, years on AMP. And I just want to go ahead and welcome Leo here today and say thank you for your time and come on in, man. How have you been? How has everything been with getting AMP to developer preview mode, and then how has everything been with you today so far? How's it going?
It's going great. Just coming back from East Global in Buenos Aires, where we had a successful hackathon. Quite a few hackers hacking on AMP, and that was the first time that it was really in public. And we got after having worked on it for quite a while and working towards that dev preview milestone. Just quite proud of you know of making that, of happy about the feedback that we got. So yeah, feeling energized.
Awesome, awesome. Yeah, so I just want to once again thank you for your time. For those of you who are trying to watch in Discord, unfortunately the audio was not working with Discord, so we're just going to be here in Graph Dev. So if anyone is looking for this stream, it'll be on Edge and Node's YouTube, on the Graph's YouTube, and also Graph Dev's. So hopefully we can go ahead and chat there. And other than that, I think that's really the only announcements I want to go through for this, because this is pretty cool for me. Leo, you started. Let's back up a little bit, and you started with EdgeNode how long ago? And were introduced and worked with subgraphs, and then from there, what was that process like to be starting EdgeNode, subgraphs, and then coming to AMP? What was that like?
Well, that is a long history because I started it with it was not called Edge Node back then. It was the Graph Inc. Because the protocol was not live yet. That was in mid to 2018 when I was brought in. The entire team of people behind the graph were probably not even 10 people at that time yet. And they had chosen Rust as their language to develop Graph Node, but they did not have Rust expertise in-house. And nowadays it's a very hot programming language. 2018, Rust was not big. It was kind of crazy to choose Rust for a production project. There wasn't the big tech adoption that we have today. And to me, it was even just crazy that I was getting this full-time job to just write Rust, right? Mm-hmm. And then I got to learn about, that was also my way into blockchains and Web3, and I got to learn all about that. And I've always been very passionate about open source, and that's something that Rust and open source are definitely the threads, because GraphNode was Rust and was open sourced about 6 months after I joined. Likewise, we've just open sourced AMP at ETH Global, so it's Rust and open source, and that's kind of the software I'd like to work on and maintain.
Yeah, and so to see your pedigree and lineage from the beginnings of Edge and Node all the way into this developer preview, it's really it's a really, there's very few on the team that have been here since the very beginning. Actually, it's more than a few. Actually, there's actually a good amount, but you're definitely one of the engineers I've been wanting to talk to about essentially that transition from subgraphs. And that, where was it where you were working with GraphNode, open source, the network was on its way, and then we had Sunrise of the network. At what point was AMP imagined, being considered? How long ago was this when AMP became just an idea in your mind, or the team's mind?
So that idea popped up. How many years do I have to go back? I believe early 2024. If now that it's all open source, people can go back and check, when was the first commit to AMP. I'm gonna even check this just for fun. Yeah, so there you go. First PRs May 2024, but it probably already existed since maybe February, March. Uh, um, that's a bit earlier than that. But so what was the story, right? So why did I even like start working on this, right? It was a time that just a prototype, right?
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't the big uh, product that it is now. And it's and it's definitely like that the fact that I've been here for so long, comes factors into what motivates me, which is that it's kind of like solving the problem, and being here for so long and feeling like the blockchain data problem is not solved.
Mm-hmm.
It's there's something disturbing about like working on a problem for so long, and you're sort of and then at some point you feel like you're spinning a bit on it,
Mm-hmm.
um, and you know, graph nodes solves subgraphs solve a part of the problem very well, right? Like the API aspect and the fact that it's ready to be consumed by a D app and it's kind of like end to end, right?
Mm-hmm.
Single thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's not even like a stack. It's just like it's just a subgraph. Like the subgraph can be like your whole data stack in a way, and
Sure.
that is amazing. But there was like various classes of use cases that were difficult to extend. Nowadays, GraphNode can do composition, and so it's getting
Mm-hmm.
optimized. So the story hasn't ended there, but there was something in the composition story. There was something in the like speed of indexing for things which have like a heavy history, right? Contracts that have a long history back in time. Uh, yeah, there is something about that problem that has not been solved yet. An AMP, well, I guess like when you're innovating, it's hard to you have to find like where to, because in a way you feel like, oh, there's so many smart people in the world and so many things have been invented, right?
Mm-hmm.
Maybe I should just, look at what's out there, right? Maybe, there isn't, maybe I can't do better, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, but there's a balance, right, between that and like starting everything saying, no, I have all the better ideas and I'm going to start everything from scratch, right? And I'm going to figure this out myself. There's a balance
Yeah.
of like where the opportunity to innovate is.
Yep.
Um, and then was also a bit sort of like from uh, engineering first principles, sort of looking around
Mm-hmm.
and saying like, okay, to 2018, it's not just like blockchain and Web3 that were at a different point, but
Mm-hmm.
like also the data world was a different point, right? And so it was like taking a fresh look at what was going on in terms of data tooling and data standards.
Yep.
In Web2, Web3, AI just everywhere. And seeing, yeah, where are the opportunities to use that to uh, innovate in the blockchain data
Yeah. And this,
domain.
just a few years ago, the innovation. I mean, the if you could say the architecture that you're most excited about to share with engineers, what is it about AMP that is just different than subgraphs? Not saying it's better or worse, but at least has a fit to, if you've been using subgraphs, wonderful. Check out AMP because it has this. What is there one or two things that you've built that you're excited for to share?
AMP, well, I am very excited about how well it works as a source of data for basically other systems, like almost whatever data system. So if you're an engineer, right, and you're designing your data stack,
Mm-hmm.
right, and maybe one size fits all is not where you're going, right? Because a subgraph was in some sense a bit like one size fits all, right? In
Mm-hmm.
the way that it worked. If it works for you, it's perfect, it's super convenient. If it doesn't, you're almost back to square zero sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, AMP is more modular, right? So you can it's not the end of the data story, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's okay that if you need further processing, if you need to integrate it with, maybe you have private data, maybe your app is not pure Web3 yet, maybe it's a hybrid and there's like some Web2 APIs, that you need to hook up with. Uh, maybe your data analyst needs the data in one place and your backend needs it in another place, but it's all coming from the blockchain.
Hmm.
AMP is fine with all of that because the consumption interface, it's high throughput, low latency. It's gRPC essentially, which is like a high performance
Sure.
interface. It is streaming, and
Hmm.
the data format is Arrow. So if you're an engineer and you know a little bit about how these data things work, those are all very familiar protocols and formats, and you already know like, oh yeah, this I can easily bridge into my data, ingest into my plug into my existing data pipeline, or design my data pipeline with that in mind, right?
Hmm. Yeah, I noticed that right away. I got to start playing with AMP a few months back. It was getting to the point where, as a team, we were pushing hard. I should say, you and your engineering team was pushing hard. I was seeing what you were making and doing my best to understand the scope. And the scope really was flexibility. I understood that from the very beginning. The ability of different developers from different backgrounds to use familiar tools to move faster. And the first thing that really caught my eye with that flexibility was the local development was emphasized from the get-go, where I've been working with subgraphs for years now, and I love subgraphs. I love Graph Node. The Dockerized version of building locally was something that came much later in the subgraphs life cycle. And here, from the get-go, developers today are able to go ahead and say, "Hey, let's go ahead and build locally." And that's something I knew you were cooking, something a little bit different when local first was put in there. And then also SQL. What was the decision in having SQL be throughout AMP as opposed to other query languages?
Well, so why SQL? It's an interesting question because SQL is like it keeps dying and then it keeps coming back up, right?
Mm-hmm.
Uh, Somehow betting against it, right, keeps proving to be not a great idea somehow,
Mm-hmm.
right? And why SQL comes back to why data fusion essentially because
Mm-hmm.
like as we started this conversation and I was saying, my background is in Rust, my background is in open source, and that's like where I thrive and that's what motivates me. So if I'm looking at a problem, right, you want to pick the right tool for the problem. But if I can solve it with Rust and if I can solve it with open source, I'll definitely try, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that was the case with Data Fusion. Apache Data Fusion is a query engine written in Rust, but it's not like a database server that like a Postgres or like it's about anything, all the other databases out there, which is like a spin up the server, and then you send a query to it and you interface it with it. It's actually a toolbox for you to build your own database.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So it's like a Rust crate. You just import it, and now you have SQL processing uh, for example, in AMP, right? So in
Mm-hmm.
AMP, we didn't write like a SQL parser. We didn't write a SQL processing engine from scratch, right? Of course, we've grown various custom pieces, but data fusion is at the core of it. So it's just like this super high performance engine, and it speaks SQL. So that was so why SQL? Because the road keeps building on SQL.
It's JavaScript. I mean, it's you think you're having different languages. It's the Python. It's the fundamental computer science. If you could compare it to a language, I mean, the world speaks so many different languages, but it just keeps on coming back to English as one of the more common ones. And then there's also, of course, other languages. But going through and traveling throughout the world, it feels very much like a somewhat of a consistent thing. And same with Python, same with JavaScript, and seems to be the same with SQL. It's just where everyone's going. With the different ways a developer might take their first steps into AMP. Right now, we're in developer preview mode, just for the sake of the audience right now. We're in developer preview, which means it's not production ready at this time. And so we're essentially building in public with this, with us talking about it and sharing, sharing publicly about AMP. Where do you see us today with AMP, Leo, and where do you see us in the next, let's say, 3 to 6 months in terms of where we're at developer preview and what's that roadmap looking like?
Um, yeah, so the roadmap, we definitely have an ambitious technical roadmap for AMP in terms of features. Uh, Today it is super high throughput, and it can also keep up with Chainhead with relatively low latency.
Mm-hmm.
So which was already like it's like kind of like sometimes like a fundamental trade-off, like throughput and latency, like how do you balance them? I think we've achieved a good balance with AMP, and that was the big challenge for this year, really. Taking this thing which is good for like batch queries and batch ingestion, and having it also be simultaneously a streaming data system. Um, where do you go from here? Well, if you look at, for example, subgraphs, right? What makes subgraphs great? One of the things that make it great is the flexibility of transformations that you can have with subgraphs. So and then a longer term roadmap, we have to think about how do you make the AMP transformations more flexible, right? Beyond
Mm.
uh, expanding the types of SQL that are supported in streaming mode, because in batch mode
Mm-hmm.
we have all of SQL. In streaming mode, it's a bit more restricted. And also, okay, how do you bring back to the sort of like JavaScript, TypeScript transform component that was
Mm-hmm.
successful in subgraphs? Um, and of course, maybe there's a graph node integration that can go deeper there, right, than the existing one. Maybe there's something inside AMP itself.
Mm-hmm.
So we're looking at transformations. We're looking at multi-chain, not only in the sense of like supporting various chains and having data sets for all of the as many chains as we can get,
Mm-hmm.
but also in the sense of, okay, what if because SQL, you can join in SQL, right? It's one of the most powerful primitives you have. So what if I join across data across chains, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And
That's
just want to interject here. I'm building with my local AMP demo, and I was able to simulate and build multi-chain and query with a single SQL query and return that data. That was a fun day. So challenge for any developer out there to take a look at AMP demo and just see what it's like to build. Still developer preview. I wouldn't say it's going to be the same today as it will be in a week or two from now, but it's possible right now. So yeah, it's the path is for multi-chain. I've heard that question for, I mean, for a while now with like one subgraph multi-chain, one subgraph multi-chain, and it feels like okay, subgraph's architecture is very good at what it can do with a subgraph and graph node. It feels like the multi-chain of AMP will be much more ergonomic. And would you agree with that? Is that where it's feeling like with AMP for the
Well,
future?
there's yeah, as you said, like you've already got something going in your local setup because there's a, there's one piece of the problem with the query side, which is AMP is has already solved, because today you can already run a regular SQL query against querying for various data sets, each at a different chains, and you can get a result back.
Mm.
So at query time, it works, and
Mm-hmm.
it's that kind of like automatic composition that you do not get from subgraphs, because with subgraphs there's like this API, right, and which is like there's like this closed set of operations that you can do.
Mm-hmm.
While with AMP, it's like this catalog, right, of like all the tables out there across all the data sets, and you can just combine them as you wish in your SQL query.
Yeah, it's
So
it's really nice. It's really nice how there's the streaming, there's batch, and I do want to go into those. I was wondering, Leo, is there anything else? Well, I have the AMP demo repository up here, and I was if you wanted to just walk through it with me, and we could just kind of talk about it as I share the screen, or if there's anything else that you want to talk about. I'm curious. I mean, we've got time, we've got an hour to hang out. Is there anything else that you'd want to talk about in regards to the pathway of AMP and the development of AMP, or should we just hop in the code? What would you prefer?
uh, Yeah, no, in terms of cybersecurity, I would just like to always reinforce that we're open source now. So anybody
Mm,
who's listening to this and is just, um, you know, curious or wants to check it out, because we don't have yet like this public facing like product or platform that you can, just like, log into and play around. But what we do have is that open source repo. So I always want to like invite people to, uh, yeah, show up and I know play with it, open an issue, open a discussion, open uh, ask questions on Discord or wherever, and because
hmm
that's kind of like or like try our demos, right? Try our local development and give us the feedback.
hmm
Um, but yeah, the AMP demo repository probably better than I do. So maybe you might be
I
the
mean,
one
that's
giving me the walkthrough, but I'm happy to
yeah. I
go over
mean,
it.
in a way, I'm trying my best to kind of bang the drum of this repository out there in public because right now, and for everyone who's watching, this is a branch of what AMP was about a month ago, and the stable nature of me just saying this is what it is and we're not changing it has allowed, of course, the engineers to continue building. So the I think the core aspects of it are there, and maybe we could just go through just from install to seeing how the data actually fills, and then we could just call it. Does that sound good, Leo?
Oh yeah, sure.
Awesome.
You want to take over the screen?
Yeah, and I'll be the one live coding, so you don't have to worry about it.
Yes.
Always fun
I'm
with live
happy to take the back seat here.
coding. Can you see my screen?
Yep.
Okay, you can
Well,
see AMP demo.
yes.
Okay, cool. So, backing up a little bit, what you can do to get this repository is go to AMP demo, and that is in the Edge Node GitHub repository slash AMP demo. And like I said, this is not up to Chainhead, if you will. It's the most recent pushes that are occurring. If you want the most recent, go to Edge Node AMP, and they're going to be having the most recent changes in there, and also the docs. The main AMP repo has the docs, and the engineers are pushing information in there. The AMP demo repo, which we'll be going over now, has a very small subset of those docs, and I'm not going to be updating those to keep track of what they're doing in main. If you want to see what they're doing and get more information, go to /amp. That's the place to go. So let's go ahead and build. So one thing I need to make sure I did here. Let's do it from the very beginning. I'm going to delete everything just to be sure on this. When you do git clone for this demo, make sure that you use recursive. There is a submodule being used in the Anvil and Foundry repository that's being a dependency that's being used. So recursive ensures that everything runs correctly, and then we'll just cd into the directory as such. So let's take a look real quick as we go through here. The main thing to take a look at, as of course in all repositories when you get started, is the README. This is a README from the get-go. We're going to build a full stack application that just uses AMP for its database, and that's essentially what we're going to do today. And let's go for it. So we'll do just install. And okay, just up. Okay. There we go. So with just up, we're having a few different processes begin, and it's all the different processes that are available. Leo, since I have you on, let me go ahead and find my Docker. Where's my daemon? There it is. There's a few different processes running here, and one of the things that I read with AMP was the various processes can be horizontally and vertically scaled, and I think this is kind of this leads to that. I don't know if this is a good time to talk about it in terms of this Docker container, but maybe you could speak a little bit about the horizontal scalability of AMP and all the different processes that are possible.
Right. Yeah. So I think, here you have already a couple of things going on. Of course, in this case, we end look, it's a local chain. Uh, Admir, I'm not exactly sure what that one is. You know what the admin
That's
one is?
to interact with the Postgres database. I
Ah,
believe
right.
it
Like a
is. It is
UI, Postgres
management.
UI
Yeah.
sort of thing. Yeah. Okay. Okay. Cool. Yeah. So it's part of the Postgres side of things. So
Mm.
Postgres, if you ever try to run GraphNode locally, GraphNode also uses Postgres, right? We do love Postgres, but GraphNode uses Postgres for the data itself.
Mm-hmm.
And we found as the chains have gotten bigger, as just like time passes, and there's just like more and more and more data on these chains, and there are more chains, and it's just the data is ever growing, and Postgres, hit some scalability and performance issues. I mean, you're like in the terabytes, tens of terabytes, and sort of scale.
Mm-hmm.
If you're thinking about like all of the data that you could possibly index from a blockchain, it's definitely well over 100 terabytes. So AMP doesn't use Postgres for the data; it uses Postgres for its what we call the metadata DB. So it's for control purposes, saying what data sets are deployed. Checking for error status, and it's also sometimes it accelerates the performance of AMP because where's the data then? Right? If the data is not in Postgres, where's the data? The data is just
Mm-hmm.
in files. The data is just in
Right.
files. And it helps us, for example, keep track of these files and filter them if we have just like their like file names and some small amount of metadata in the Postgres metadata DB.
Yep.
Um,
Yep.
so
And
that's why
it's nice
Postgres is in
the
there.
portability of it, where the metadata being in Postgres and it's just Parquet files where it materializes.
Mhm.
It's nice. I showed this to a few different engineers and they said, "Oh, cool," and they knew what to do, which was really nice. This is something that's happening locally. It happened earlier. We're having a port conflict, so I'm gonna have to go ahead and shut this down real quick and then restart this container. Let's see. I'm on another screen right now, just to close the ports. Uh-huh. Mhm. Da-da. And then we'll go ahead and try it again. We'll try it one more time. Let's see if it runs. 1602. Yeah, okay, we'll try it one more time here. Close again.
Yeah. While we're adding this, I'm just going to add to the question that you asked me about horizontal scalability.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, One thing that's very horizontally scalable is an AMP. You can just spin up more query servers and just hook them up as you were talking, saying directly to the location where you have your Parquet file stored, because you
Mm-hmm.
have a writer process writing those files. Then you can have basically as many readers as you want,
Yep.
and they're just talking directly to the files and the metadata DB, of course.
Yep. The ability of the Parquet has been really nice. I've been researching that a little bit more as we've been building. I haven't built a lot with Parquet. This has been something new to me, but that's been interesting to see the speed advantages to it. So, okay, let's keep on going. I think this should be able to run. Uh, let's go ahead and try Dust Dev. Yeah, so we're still getting the error. Yeah, so let me just close it down here. The All right, let's try it again. Try again. Let's clear these ports, shut it down, and then we'll restart it. Boom, 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 boom. The um, front end right here, this was designed by Chris Whitted. So thank you very much, Chris, for taking care of this. Essentially, when we get this done, the data will materialize here in the uh, data and we could go through the providers and go through the different way that AMP will set things up. While this is running, I want you to go ahead. Oh, let's not do that. It's gone too far. The organization of the providers, where there's an anvil.toml. This is where multi-chain comes in, correct? This is the world of not just anvil.toml, but let's just say Polygon, or name whatever chain you'd like. That's the case right there, correct?
Yeah, there's not the only piece. There are two pieces. You need the provider and you need the
Mm-hmm.
data set. The
Right.
provider is, as any system that needs to talk to, an external data sources, you need to configure, your endpoints, your authorization keys, rate limiting. It's not super interesting. What's interesting is how it hooks up to a data set definition. So you have a provider toml, and then you have your data set definition, which is this JSON file, which you can generate actually if I don't know if it's documented on this repository, but for whatever combination of network you need, there's like the amp. Uh, yeah, I'm not sure. Is it amp control? There's one of the amp binaries that offers like the generate manifest command,
Mm-hmm.
and then because for the raw, right? Because in AMP you have the raw data sets and the derived data sets. The
Mm-hmm.
raw data sets for a given kind, for example, we AMP is able to extract from JSON RPC. So there's the JSON RPC kind of data set for EVM, an EVM based chain.
Mm-hmm.
And then you can generate that standard schema and manifest for any EVM chain.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the configuration you need. You need that data set and you need the provider that corresponds to it. They match by the network, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then you're good to go and start thinking some data from the chain.
Perfect. Yeah, that's the we got everything running. I was having a Docker port issue and got that sorted. And the providers, like you said, the data sets, we're going to be able to see these uh, spin up. These were empty before I had AMP running, and now AMP is running. We have the raw data and we have the derived data. And let's go ahead and have some fun with this. Let's go to 5173. Here it is. So this is the cool part of this demo, which I always enjoy, is seeing the data actually go from front end, ingest, and materialize as Parquet files in real time. And you can see the logs, and it's dumping right into our raw data. So we get the blocks, logs, and transactions, and we've got the derived also data, the decremented and incremented, that was defined by the developer who helped build this repository. So this is streaming in here, and I'll back off here. Anything you want to add to this, Leo? It's nice to be able to have a senior engineer take a look at what's going on in real time. What are you seeing and thinking, and what type of ergonomics will this provide for developers who are using AMP?
Yeah, just in terms of like there's like internal in the weeds surfing. If you're watching like a data directory, you can see here you have like the 000, and then you have the 3 and then the 4. These are of
Mm-hmm.
course the start block numbers for these files, right? The files are
Ooh,
start
that's
by
news to
start.
me. I did not know that. That's okay. This is the little tiny things that are going to get into the documentation somewhere. That's nice. The uh, the amp.config.ts. This is the last thing that I think would be good for developers getting started. What's the purpose of this one here, amp.config.ts? And once again, this is developer preview. From what I understand, this will be changing. But from a high level, what are we doing with this here, Leo?
Yeah. Uh, no drastic like breaking changes currently planned. Like we're pretty happy
Right.
with that. Basic structure. Of course, going to get extended over time, right? There's like more things you can do with it. But I would expect this to keep working. But what is going on? So if you just read through this, it's pretty straightforward, right? I don't think there's
Mm-hmm.
anything too shocking. What is
Mm-hmm.
interesting is to note is the dependencies
Mm-hmm.
aspect, which is already how like composition is built into the system. Right? The only way you can define any data set at all is by using composition, because you always have to compose with the raw data, right?
Right.
So that's what's being done here. You have raw data for your Enzo chain, and then here you're going to do event decoding on top of that. I also like the power of having the destination being TypeScript, right? So it's like this combination SQL and TypeScript,
Mm-hmm.
which is just targeting, familiarity. Nowadays, it's not just familiarity for developers; it's also familiarity for the AIs that the developers
Mm-hmm.
might be using. Um, And the other, not only is it a familiar language, both SQL and TypeScript, and then because here you don't have the SQL directly defining your tables, right? Because you're already using this helper, the event tables helper.
Hmm.
And that's just like the power of having because typically AMP is like the system is declarative, right? So it's the saying like, oh, if you generate the manifest, it's going to be a JSON manifest.
Hmm.
Um, and you want it to be declarative because you want the blockchain to be the source of truth, right? You don't
Hmm.
want to be fiddling with the data.
Sure.
Um, but the power of declaring it in this way instead of like what it might be more typical in many declarative systems is what we do with subgraphs, which was that the user has to edit a YAML file.
Hmm. Yep.
What happens is that very quickly people need to like reuse bits and pieces of the YAML to generate like many manifests, also say like, oh, for different chains or, different kinds of like, so then you have to start thinking about code generation, you have to start thinking about templating, and then what was supposed to be a very simple, YAML file becomes quite a complicated, bundle of scripts to generate the YAML that you need in the end. So
Hmm.
here we just had, people are going to be dynamically generating this anyways. We might as well
Hmm.
give them a coding language. Uh, and this is already an example of this, and the power of this, which is that the event tables here is just a simple TypeScript function, right? Um, but it's just like very conveniently generating in the end data set definition for you.
Hmm. Yeah, I've been working with this a good amount. In the README, I put a small extension. If you guys want to try that out, I won't do that here. I think this is enough information to as opposed to playing around with the code. But yes, this is where we define data set. We'll go ahead and define the data set and the tables and the filtering that we would like to do before the data materializes. It is a very good place to just become familiar with or just start to become aware of. Is there anything else in here that you'd like to go through, Leo, before we step away from the IDE?
Well, I don't think there's anything. Do you want to show us the JSON, like what this gets sort of like compiled into? Like, yeah, so that's the raw
Info.json?
one. Yeah,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, or
with like the
you want to see
schema.
the different data sets?
Yeah, maybe like the derived one. Okay, maybe that's not.
Yeah. So that's I think this is formatted.
Yeah. But maybe that's still the raw one. Maybe the one below. Not sure. Uh,
No,
nope, nope. Okay,
I wish I
then
could
never mind. It's
read.
fine. Oh
Yeah,
yeah,
this is
that one. Yeah, that one. That was what I would maybe want to show.
JSON. Save.
Okay.
Nope, not going to format.
No,
Okay.
yeah, we're not gonna read this. Okay, it's fine. But yeah, it's just like if you scroll to the side a little bit, people
Yeah,
are gonna see like there's like a select something something something, just
there it
so
is.
that event tables invocation got translated to a bunch of SQL, which is what AMP would actually execute. Right? AMP is not executing this TypeScript. It
Right.
can execute TypeScript in different sort of contexts, like in the like functions context, but for tables, it is always SQL, right? And that's what it became.
Yeah, yeah. The peppering of SQL throughout this is nice, for declarative. Um, well, I mean, I keep on talking with engineers, and as soon as I say SQL and database, they go, "Oh, agentic." It's like that's where their minds are in terms of the narrative right now. But yeah, as you're getting familiar, engineers who are watching this, you'll be seeing SQL both at batch and streaming query times. So, okay, are we good with this little demo repo? You feel content with where we are, Leo?
Yep.
Okay, awesome. So let me close this and we'll come back here. All right, man. That was 45 minutes, and I think we're like doing pretty good. What are some thoughts and feelings you have right now where, okay, what we have is something that's completely different from anything on the market, something that's completely different than anything outside of our market. Like it is a unique unto its own. Um, what are you hoping for for developers to take away from this? Is there something, if there's one thing that you hope developers take away from this, what would that be?
Um, well, one takeaway. SQL. It's just
All
like,
right.
what is AMP? It's like it's SQL for the queries, it's SQL for defining the data sets
Yeah.
and materializing them. It's gRPC and Arrow for consuming. I just want people to know that this is not like some completely weird system that they're gonna have to learn from scratch.
Sure.
I just want people to like latch on to any of these things, whatever seems familiar here,
Sure.
um, because then we want you to feel at home using AMP.
Yep, I love that. We want you to feel at home using AMP. Great way to end this Builder's Office Hours. Leo, thank you so much for your time. Thank you so much for joining me and sharing. I know you are working very hard with you and your team on this, and uh, I'm excited for, let alone next week, next month, next few months. It's an exciting time to be DevRel, and for working with you guys and helping this push. This is really cool. So, anything else to add, or is that a good send off at this time, Leo?
Nope, yeah, thank you so much for inviting me. This is great fun. Yeah, I'm getting back to work to shipping more features for AMP.
Awesome, awesome. If anyone has feedback for AMP, just go to the AMP repository and open an issue. And that's the most direct way to go ahead and communicate with engineers that, of course, that they are looking for feedback. So this would be a great time to go play with AMP. If you want to go ahead and talk with me, of course, you can reach out to me on Telegram. It's Marcus underscore REIN underscore. No, just one underscore. Just one in the middle. And X of there's different underscores for different platforms for me. But yes, go ahead and reach out to me if you'd like to talk about anything else. But yes, to reach out to engineers, go ahead and open an issue. Thank you so much for your time, everyone. And until next week, I'll see you around. Take care, guys.
Bye.